Recently, I've moved to an island in the South Pacific and I've gotten the hiking bug, so I try and get out to new locations as much as I possibly can, what with work eating into my precious time. This happened to me about 2 weeks ago. Since I live in the South Pacific region, it gets mighty hot, driving all by the most insane hikers indoors unless it's at night. Of course, I'm not a masochist, so I try to do all my hiking in the early hours of the morning or in the evening when it starts getting cool. I have never been afraid to go hiking by myself. I did it when I lived in Oregon and never ran into any problems with it, but my island isn't my friendly home state. I always carried pepper spray when I used to go hiking in Montana and Wyoming. I would also sometimes carry a handgun to ward off anything I couldn't take on, whether it be a bear or a person, but I had always gotten off considerably lucky. I got to the trailhead at about 6:30 in the evening. The trail was called Thousand Steps, but in all honesty, it was mostly just a walk straight down the cliff and then a grueling journey back up. I didn't want to go, but my dog, Mad Moxie, needed to be walked, and I had done the hike so many times I could probably do it in my sleep. The first thing I noticed when I pulled up was an old, rickety, rusted out blue pickup truck with a big plastic tarp over the bed to keep out of the rain. These are pretty common in the island, affectionately earning them the name Guam Bombs. I didn't think much of it as I hooked up Moxie and started heading down the trail, trying my best to ignore the mosquitoes that were making a meal out of my exposed neck. Heading down the trail was relatively easy. I felt the stress of my day slowly unwind, as the underbrush grew darker and the night approached. I made it all the way down the water's edge when I noticed a man standing about 100 yards away. It was dark enough now that I could see only his silhouette, so I have no idea if he was looking at me or at the water. But I chose to ignore him, and instead pull Moxie's ball from my backpack and throw it at her a few times to get all of her wiggles out. After some time, the man started walking over to me and stopped maybe about 10 feet away. Now, I'm not a tiny woman. I'm 23 years old and I stand about 5 foot 6 inches, and this guy was just a couple inches taller than me. But most of the locals were on the smaller side, but something about him just felt weird. "Evening," I greeted as he nodded and looked down at Moxie, who just returned from running after her ball. I stopped down to pet her now humidity-soaked head as the man kept his eyes trained on my dog. "Can I help you, sir?" "Pretty dog," he responded mildly. "You alone?" "I have my dog," I said lamely, trying to sound braver than I was actually feeling. "I'm never alone." I tried to emphasize on the fact that I had my dog with me, but the man seemed unfazed by my statement. "Oh, have a good night." With that, he turned around and started walking back towards the trailhead. I watched his shadow disappear into the trees and waited for about half an hour before I too started walking back towards the path. My mind was on high alert as Moxie pulled me through the trees and up the cliffside. The crickets pierced the night as I climbed the steps, illuminated by my flashlight. My hands were full with Moxie's leash and my light, but you could bet your buns that I would have my pepper spray out if I had an extra hand. Finally, my light pierced the trees at the top and I practically booked it up the hill. When I got to the top, I nearly shit myself. The rusted blue pickup truck was sitting in the parking lot still, but their passenger's side door was practically touching my car's driver's side door. Inside the car, I could faintly see two men sitting in the cab, and I could feel them watching me. Slowly, I approached my car, walking as far over to the passenger side as I could, and kept Moxie with me and crawled over to the driver's side. At that moment, the door of the pickup truck flew open and my dog started going crazy, barking at the two people who were now outside their car and trying to break into mine. Hard in my chest, I rammed my keys into the ignition and tore out of the parking lot so quickly I nearly took my mirror off. I called my mom as soon as I got home and she begged me to call the police. Unfortunately, the police here on the island aren't as vigilant as they are on the mainland, and that area is known for car thefts, mugging, and other debaucheries, as I later learned from my coworkers that week. Earlier this month, another girl actually disappeared from that area without a trace, and it makes me wonder if the men in the blue pickup truck didn't have something to do with it. If I hadn't had Moxie with me, would I have been mugged or worse? If I learned anything from this experience, it's that for my lady hikers, please always take pepper spray with you. Go hiking in groups, and always let someone know where you're going. It might save your life someday.